Oh, damn. Got a whole storm going here. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ally panel. I am Azeal. I will be the moderator today. I guess we should start with some introductions. Tupper, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So, hello, my name is Tupper. I work for VRChat as the head of community. That means a bunch of different things, but mostly I work with the rest of my wonderful community team on collaborating with different groups, working on events, working with like our product team, all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. I guess I should also do. I am a cisgendered male. I go just he/him is fine. Let's see. Anything else important? I like robots. That's a good intro. Yeah.
Johnny, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm TFMJonny. I am a content creator, YouTuber, stinky wolf boy, and I just kind of do a lot of things and stink up VR chat, and this has been an amazing home for me. And yeah, I'm also cisgender male, and a huge ally of the trans community. And what else can I say? I like music, and I like comedy. There, I can't get more insightful than that right now. I don't know. My coffee is still kicking in.
Perfect. And I will finish off the introductions. I am Azeal. I am also a VR chat content creator. I started a little over 3 years ago when I was in a public VR chat lobby and someone was saying something funny, and I had NVIDIA Shadowplay running. So I pressed save, asked them if I could put it on YouTube, and people loved it. And since then, I have dedicated my life to sharing perspectives across the board through VR chat as a medium, using its amazing utility as a place for anonymity and self-expression. And as for gender identity, I'll get into that, but I'm just same thing as them for now. So I guess with that we can get started. I have 4 questions that I want to go over, and each of us will give our answers, and we'll kind of discuss, add some, pad out the time, make sure that we're giving some good info. If you hear something during this that you resonate with or feel like makes a lot of sense, something that you like to hear, go ahead and use that same snowflake emoji so I can know that we're doing it right. Okay, I will start with our first question, and that should have been already on my screen. Professional here. Okay,
Live TV,
so
baby.
starting, yup, same order.
Sure.
I'll start with you, Tupper. Was there a specific moment when you first felt like you understood trans identity?
Yeah. So I've never really growing up like had a huge amount of visibility into trans identity. I was kind of a sheltered kid for lack of a better word. I went to like a private Baptist school and all that kind of stuff, and eventually went into like the wonderful American public school system. And as I kind of just like grew through all of that, and even as I went through college and my first big boy job, I lived in a place that wasn't exactly very friendly to trans visible folks. South Carolina, to be specific, not by choice. But I quickly found friends, however, when I found VRChat in 2017. And a lot of those friends were on some part of the pathway to understanding their own identity. It's kind of hard to pick out an exact moment. I tried to figure out my best exact moment. One of them, I was hanging out with some friends at the, oh goodness, my elbow is doing some crazy stuff, with some friends at the Great Pug, as you do, and we were running upstairs to the second floor. So, like, there's that second landing. Oh, now I have a cat on me. Wow, I'm playing this in hard mode. Um, and as we were hanging out and we ran up to the second floor, there was someone who was listening to us, just kind of like tagging along. That person got my attention as we got to the top of the stairs and asked me, just very simply, "Hey, why are you calling this person she?" And they said so because apparently they identified, the voice as not that, and I wanted to ask the question. And my response was just because she wanted to be called that. The response from them was actually really interesting. Like I expected some kind of troll or shit post or whatever, but they just kind of paused, thought for a moment, and said, "Oh, okay," and then they said thanks and ran downstairs. And this is kind of analogous to my experience in kind of discovering things. Here's how I think of it basically. There's lots of ways that people exist, right? I have the privilege of like kind of understanding my identity pretty straightforward, kind of from where I've been living. But that's my pathway. Like it's just one pathway. I can't assume that that pathway is right for everybody. My sample size is one. Like my personal experience is n equals one. So why would I impede someone else's pathway, right? Like I don't understand everyone's there. So even calling like the journey of life as a set of paths isn't really correct. It's like an ungrown or an overgrown wild, right? Like there are no pathways. Some people walk off in various directions, up hills and mountains, trenches, canyons. Some paths are easy, some are hard. But some people choose to cut a path to make it easier, and some people put up walls or blow up the road behind them. So my road's been real easy in this kind of sense, right? I had a straightforward kind of understanding of myself. If I can spend just a trivial amount of effort to make someone else's path a little bit easier, yeah, why the hell not? Why would I not do that? So that's
Absolutely.
kind of the mindset I approached everything with as I discovered things through VR chat.
Good answer. I
Thank you.
really like that interpretation of we each experience life. I informed that we have a donation drive, and if you want to check that out, I believe it's available on the Twitch stream. So definitely check that out if you're interested in donating. And with that, I guess, Johnny, if you'd like to answer the same question, when do you feel like first understood identity?
Are you cutting out, or is my internet dying?
Am I cutting
I
out?
think that's, yeah, a little bit. You're a little hitchy.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
We got your
I'll
question.
cover for
Let's
it,
try that
and
again.
I'll start
Yeah,
talking
go for
so you
it.
can. All right, yeah. So when I first saw this question, as we were like proposing questions for the panel, I had a memory come back to me, and I was like, oh yeah, because it has actually been 10 years almost to the month, and I'll explain exactly why. I was just like similar to Tupper. I grew up. I'm Canadian. I grew up in what we lovingly dubbed the Texas of Canada. I am in Alberta, and
Yeehaw.
there's a lot to unpack there. I was also raised evangelical Christian. Yes, if you've seen Jesus Camp, yes, I've been through that. I am no longer I am atheist now, but we're not going to get into religious affiliations or anything like that. But 10 years ago, I was already atheist. I was no longer Christian. And my wife and I were looking for, well, she was my fiance at the time. We were looking for somebody to marry us. And this person came recommended massively by a bunch of our friends saying, "Oh, you gotta talk to them. You gotta talk to them." And it turned out they were the head of the Pride Association in my city, and they were trans, and I had never met a trans person before. I had just kind of moved away from that very conservative lifestyle and everything, and I was learning and thinking on my own, and discovering new things, and it was the first trans person I'd ever met and talked to. And 10 years ago, we're actually going to be celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary next month. And yeah, 10 years ago, we were married by a female to male trans individual who was an amazing, actually also a United Church. What are they, priests, or are they? But anyways, yeah. So they were even in the Christian church still, which was really neat to see that there are some denominations still of Christianity that are accepting of the LGBTQ community. But yeah, so that was my first exposure to a trans person, first time meeting a trans person, and from there, I went on obviously to become part of VR chat in about 2018. I believe it was Knuckles era that I came in, just like a lot of people. And there is so much in here that not just for trans people, but for a lot of different people in the LGBTQ community to discover about themselves. I firmly believe, and I've talked to psychologists about this too, some who have done papers about VR chat, and this is truly a incredibly powerful tool for therapy. And the initiatives that Trans Academy are doing are just absolute flagships of that, of how powerful this place can be. And just through being in VR chat and networking and meeting people, because there is a higher volume of trans people in here, like half of my staff are trans, and they support my community. They do great work, and I'm also happy to give back and work with Trans Academy and continue that journey, and just keep building out a dialogue and helping to grow, as a society, frankly, because information and education is probably the most important tool that we can use. And hopefully that my neurospiciness didn't ramble on too much. Just hit me with a cattle prod if I start rambling. But yeah.
You
I got
did
one built in
great.
right here.
Yeah.
And I guess I will finish that question up. I remember the moment when I first was exposed to the idea of trans identity very clearly. I was in 8th grade, and my teacher. So I am 22 now, so do the math there. I was in 8th grade, and my teacher, my English teacher, said we're gonna do a watch through of a news segment together, and she didn't tell us what it was. And she said, "I want you each to. We're going to go around and talk about what we understood from this." And she put on, I believe it was an NBC segment about families with trans kids, and this was long before the dialogue had become so inflamed as it is now. And I was sitting there with my edgy atheist self, that if anybody knows about like the YouTubers of the anti SJW movement back then, oh my gosh, I had an era. But the thing that really helped me get out of that era was people's individual experiences. Like every time someone told me about, or I saw like a news segment or something about someone who's been through a unique and like who has been discriminated against, I was like, oh, well, that goes against the thing that the YouTubers were telling me. I guess that's more accurate than these cis white guys trying to explain these things. So thankfully, I was predisposed to that. But I remember watching this segment, and I was just. It felt like it made sense a lot faster than it did for a lot of the other kids in the class, because I don't know. I feel like I was predisposed to be a VR chat player. Like I understood that it's cool it is normal for someone to not want to be exactly how the universe plopped them into the world, and to have different, to look or feel or express themselves in different ways. And I think even back then in my edgy era, I just thought it was beautiful. Like I understood this idea of being different in a way that made sense to that person. It didn't have to make sense to anyone else. Like it doesn't matter if anyone else can completely comprehend and accept your exact identity, although that is very important for people in society. Like you're still you, and I really liked hearing about that. Like I thought it was really cool. So I'm very lucky that I was. It sounds like both of you as well. Like we were pretty receptive early on, and I think, yeah, I mean, it's more impressive for the two of you because I was progressive family, but like, it's a lot harder when.
I
Yeah.
think it's telling, like in particular, you mentioned like the whole era thing. Like that comes to mind because there are definitely like there are lots and lots of people who have been shitheads, to put it bluntly, previously. And all you have to do is just kind of like have that experience of like being in someone else's shoes. All it takes is just just a little taste, just a little just moment. And you can go from being like I'm an internet old, not as old, like I'm not on BBSs and that stuff like that, but like there have been segments of like world communication where people were just kind of generally shitheads far more often than they are now. And like
Mhm.
yeah, I will freely admit I did not help in those situations. And what really matters is that you grow and you understand. The past is the past. If you move past it and you're making a difference moving forward, that's what's important.
Yeah. Cool. Let's go to our next question. You kind of answered this already, actually. Both of you did. But how has VR chat informed your understanding of the trans community?
Yeah. So yeah, the story I showed above and like my kind of journey in VR chat has just been iterative, right? It's my understanding is never complete is probably the best lesson I've picked up. My privileged position in life, as kind of how I've been plopped into the universe by the uncaring random thermodynamic forces of the universe. There's there there is all you have to do is just continue learning, and that's kind of the main thing I've picked up. I've seen VR chat in particular be like a really transformative platform for the understanding of the community, not just for myself but for everybody. Like I get to see a set of diverse experiences and narratives and stories that I probably never would have encountered otherwise. And I say that not because like I live in a bad place now; it's because I don't go outside. So the ability to interact in real time and to be able to hang out with people and share virtual spaces, like the most immersive place on the internet, allows for like deep empathetic, connections that you don't otherwise get. Something that all of us understand pretty kind of like as an integral part of the experience. Like you get it once you try it. Like it's headsets on heads, right? I think we all kind of understand that.
Mhm.
I think actually I have written here, like Tizzy, I'm a bit of an internet old, which is a call out to Tizzy. Sorry, Tizzy. We're both internet boomers. But while I was not on early MUDs and BBSs, I was like in early spaces like forums and direct dial multiplayer with games like Command and Conquer. Found myself in
Mm.
MMOs eventually. Ragnarok Online, EVE Online, World of Warcraft, some other role playing focused MMOs. And as I got into those spaces and I played the games, not only did I recognize, oh, I kind of hate the video game part, but I really like the transformative part of it, right? Like I like the social space for it being social, but you can be anything. Like you want to go in World of Warcraft and be like a dog that is a guy, like sure, you can do that. You want to go into EVE Online and be like a dude in a capsule that flies a spaceship, you can do that. So when I found VR chat, it was like, oh shit, this is the distillation of everything, right? Like I've gotten rid of everything else I don't really give a shit about. Um,
Mhm.
it's just the social space, and what I found is something that actually changed the world actively. Like I was watching the world change in front of me, and for the better. So I watched like people discover themselves, watch them come out of their shells, finding bravery, their heart, finding their support network, all the things that they felt that they needed in order to finally identify themselves how they wanted to, right? And explore it and try it out, and then oh, I understand now. This is what makes me feel good. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, a continuous journey is kind of the best way to put it. That's what I've learned. That the understanding is it's never complete, and that's okay. But no single story or experience that anyone can share with someone else complete, like you don't get to fill out the check boxes there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think most importantly, uh, like watching all of these experiences have helped me define like my personal mission working at VRChat, which is like no matter what happens, no matter what hardships anyone has to endure, no matter what we have to do, my core function at VRChat is to preserve the space because like as long as this is around, that will continue happening. That kind of cycle of discovery and support and identity. So like hell or high water, that is it. Like that's what I have to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, so I was just trying to think of like kind of my perspective as Tupper took all of my talking points. No,
Oh.
no, I just want to talk to just the fact that being in a place in the world where, let's just be frank, trans people can't be as easily out in public, and just being fully representative of their true selves. VR chat has not only given them a platform to just be themselves and just um, just why is my brain come on, brain, come on. But just basically give them a safe space to be. That's the word I was looking for. But also, as well, for allies, because this is an ally panel, for allies to feed back into that community, because just as much as it's important to be yourself, it's also important to have people reaffirm that it's okay to be yourself. And I think that's the power of VR chat, is especially in safe spaces like this where you can just be yourself and just choose to identify however you like, and discover who you are. That's an incredibly powerful tool, and VR chat just gives that to you in every which way you can imagine. And certainly as an ally, feeding back into that and just you know telling people it's okay, and giving them a place to feel okay, and as a friend, just reaffirming that, I think is probably one of the most powerful things of VR chat in this sort of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And okay, God, the thing is, quick behind the scenes. If anyone has seen my channel, I don't actually ever, not once, have I written down questions or answers to those questions ahead of time. My entire time doing this, so actually, like preparing for something was, it threw me off a bit. But I knew it would help the two of you not feel like you were going in blind as well. So my understanding has been informed by VR chat, kind of as like a solidification of the understanding that I gained in those first moments when I was younger, where I realized like this is just so many people's reality, and VR chat is validating that reality in such a beautiful way. I don't understand how anyone could be here for more than 20 minutes and not get at least a seedling of the idea that people can be who they want to be in ways that may be incompatible with our current understanding as individuals. That maybe it's okay to, instead of being anything from confused to repulsed, it might be a better option to ask questions. And I had already gotten there by the time I was in VR chat, but it's been really amazing just seeing. An example of this is like the way I describe public lobbies nowadays. A lot of them are like, if you go to a Black Cat, it's not people thinking they're playing VR chat, it's people thinking they're playing Counter Strike. Like they just shit talk like nobody's business. And it's just amazing that when you get to the inner scene, anywhere from Trans Academy to the clubs that I think all of us frequent, at least somewhat, you get to this place where if you do that shit, like if you are being a nuisance and not approaching every new idea to you by asking questions about it, you're not going to stick around that long. No one's going to let you.
Yeah.
Like there is an immense amount of accountability here, which is amazing considering the inherent anonymity of the platform. Obviously, there are trade-offs there, but I think for me personally, my understanding has been informed just by the amount of people I have had the opportunity to ask questions. I have had so many people with unique experiences that I've been able to, and of course, in my work, this is especially true. I've had the opportunity to ask, what is this? Like, tell me about this part of you. Tell me about who you are and how gender fits into that. Tell me everything. And I've sat down for at least 100 hours now of my playtime in VR chat is on camera or off, sitting down with someone and listening to the most complex and intricate parts of their life. So I'm honored to say that I've been able to do that.
Yeah. I think it's telling that it, like, when you mention like those different scenes, there are very few places on the internet where like everybody is so open and understanding and willing to listen. I think that like that was a really like important key point you brought up. But like in those spaces, there is no swifter social suicide. Wow, I managed to say that without messing that up. Than to be closed-minded or hateful. Like that's immediate shutout from like any kind of social
Yep.
circle in VR chat that's worth its salt. Which is, and it's done in like a very surgical way. Like it's not like cancel fest or whatever, but it's like, oh, you're a piece of shit. Like okay, you have to leave now. Like you can't be here. You
Yep.
either learn or you leave.
Yeah, it really does feel like this place where it's just this crazy duality where self-expression and like this powerful social like broader moderation, not just of like getting banned from a group, but like being told to go away if you are the kind of person that is causing harm. Like it really feels like this distilled perfect location for human interaction. Like one of the things that I tried to once describe VR chat in the simplest way possible, kind of like it was like a featherless biped kind of thing, if anyone gets that. But I realized the best way I can put it in under 5 words is humanity over IP. Like you are sending as much of yourself as you can across the internet to express yourself, and it's beautiful to see how so many important social dynamics from before the internet, like protection of others in your group, are implemented here.
Hyperhumanity transfer protocol. There you go.
Love that. Okay, we are like right on schedule. Sweet.
Nice.
Third question. How do you use your influence as community leaders to create a safe space for trans people?
Sure. I'll try not to steal too many of your points. Sorry, Johnny.
It's okay. I'd be worried if you did. I got a whole story to tell. Yeah, that's very.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to foster like inclusive, safe, and supportive environment. Right. That's kind of that's just status quo. That is mission number 0. And in VR chat, like speaking from in a work voice, like we actively work on like creating those safe spaces, or better yet, providing the tools to implement those safe spaces, and that's done by implementing clear guidelines, policies, and then promoting respect, but also invoking the paradox of tolerance by not tolerating intolerance. So that's one kind of important part of the entire effort that I figured out early on. You have to be completely zero tolerance towards intolerance, and that's kind of a tough sell in a lot of different cases. But as soon as you do that, you end up building a space just naturally that works out. We all know that moderation is like a massive problem on the internet. Like everyone will acknowledge that, and VR chat is absolutely no exception. It's worse than VR chat because when you are at the receiving end of harassment and hate, it stings a lot more, right? I mean, you're in the space that is deeply transformative, and that same kind of superpower also applies to the harm. So you have to be really really heavy-handed with just kind of dealing with these problems. And you can rehabilitate people. I do want to add that on from like what we were talking about before. I've seen cases where people had the shithead era, but then they figured things out and like, actually, you know what? This is not me as a human. I need to be better. And they got better. And providing that space that does both of those things is really important. And to circle back a little bit, one of the most important things that I'm really learning more and more about is community empowerment. And this is the concept of empowering different communities, whether they're small or large, like Trans Academy, to truly own their spaces, like full capability to moderate and organize in effective and impactful ways. So this kind of also ties into another thing that I had to learn, and also Straws helped me learn. Shout out. Delegation is important as a leader. Like, you can't do everything yourself. And if you do, you're just going to be kind of shitty at a bunch of things. So instead, what I found is that you focus on what you can do, and then you use your position to say, okay, here, this is your space. You own this. You can now do what you need to do. You are the expert here. And you just take that idea and you multiply it and you add on over time. And you just end up with like this ultimate form of delegation. People are happy to do it. People want to do it. They want to do the work. And if you give them the power, like it's so huge. And while we have a lot of communities in VR chat, I'm really happy and very willing to say that much of our focus so far have been on empowering communities that are supportive and providing good spaces for lots of different types of people, like Trans Academy. This space is a model community. I have told the entire team this multiple times, and I mean that both as a model of kind of the support network model, but also as a textbook example of how to run a effective community at like an organizational level. So shout out to the entire Trans Academy team, Tizzy, Shay, Scout, Allie, everybody here. You guys are doing ridiculously incredible work. There are very few other communities on the internet that are organized as well and run this well. It's kind of shit, I don't do my job as well as you do. So I think to sum it up, the commitment that you really have to go in on is just improvement and evolution over time. And you do that by creating those spaces and by focusing on community empowerment. And as you do that over time, you kind of go on that ongoing journey I was talking about before, and you improve iteratively. You're not going to get it right on the first go. You're not going to get it right on the 10th or 20th or 50th go. You'll probably never get it right. But as long as you're doing it better than you were yesterday, that's really the key. And supporting other people to be able to build those spaces is important.
Yeah. Perfection is the best that you could possibly do with the tools and knowledge you have.
Perfect is the enemy of good. That is
Yes.
something I've had to pick up very rapidly.
Yeah, I'm getting. I know you said no work stuff, but I know that in a job as complex as yours, I'm sure that there is definitely a desire to be perfect all the time, kind of built in there.
Yeah, we're perfectionists for better or worse, for a lot of things, but
yeah. Okay, go for it, Johnny.
Yeah, no, I have a very particular personal story, so I'd be very concerned if Tupper stole my talking points this time. But
I mean,
no, but as being as being a leader in my own community and sort of a public figure in the VR chat community as a whole, it really comes down to outreach and education, just kind of like what I touched on a bit in the last point that I was discussing. And I was at TwitchCon Vegas last October and was just wandering the hall and came across Trans Lifeline's booth. And there was Steph sitting there, and it's just like we had that moment of Johnny, Steph, oh, hi, how's it going? And we got to chatting and everything, and we came up with this great idea of doing, I got invited to be a part of a charity drive for Trans Lifeline in this past December, and we were trying to figure out what to do with what we were being given. And so I just came up with the idea, talking with my staff, well, what if we reached out to Trans Academy and we just took that opportunity, because we knew we were going to be shown on the front page of Twitch and everything, because they were doing that charity carousel thing and all that for December. And it's just well, what a great opportunity to just do outreach and do education. So we reached out to Trans Academy, and we're like, let's do this charity drive. And our first meeting as a leader, just to talk about delegation, to kind of build on that, especially as an ally, and when you're talking about education, I basically just presented it to the team at Trans Academy as sort of the this is going to be a little bit abrasive, but it kind of got the point across. I told them, I'm just like, it's not about me. It's not about, I'm not going to sit there explaining everything to everyone. They're just like, what do you want to do with this? And I said, well, frankly, I can't think of a title for this to kind of communicate what I want to do. It's just kind of like the cis white guy just shuts the hell up and lets everybody else talk about, kind of that sort of vibe, where it was just like, I don't want to come in here, and I don't want to, as a leader, come in here and just, explain everything to everybody because it's not mine to explain. And so that was kind of, as a leader, an important thing for me to realize, just kind of like take a step back and just hand the platform over, pass the torch over, and be like, okay, we have this now, let's educate, let's talk about this, let's show the world what is going on here. And I think that's incredibly important. And it kind of underlines as well, like, yes, we are in VR chat, and we can change things in here, but at the end of the day, we also should strive for that ultimate goal, of using this as a tool to also build outreach outside of VR chat. And I'm really excited and happy to say we raised $2,000 for Trans
Hell yeah.
Lifeline, which is really awesome, really amazing, and yeah, it was a really awesome experience. But going into it as well, I really genuinely did not have any clue just how much Trans Academy had grown by that point, and what they were doing in here, because like, just meeting the whole team and learning what everybody's job was, and the services they offer to the trans community. And it was just like, honestly, I didn't need to worry about, shutting the hell up, because I was literally speechless with all the amazing things that go on in here. And just being able to show that to the world was a very important moment, and a very proud moment to be able to do that. And so, yeah, as leaders, there you go. To add on to the delegation, is just like, sometimes you just need to shut the hell up, and let people speak about their experiences. And yeah, and as an ally, that's incredibly important. So yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I will follow that story up with an experience very similar that I had, where I have kind of a broader point to this as well. I also did a charity event that it was called Transcend VR. It was almost a year ago now. I've never been one to do things in a reasonably achievable way. That's not really my style. So I decided that we were going to stream for 168 hours straight. So that's 1 week with no breaks at all.
Oh my God.
There was someone on stage or doing a DJ set at all times for those entire 168 hours, except for a total of 10 minutes that we had downtime due to internet and my computer freaking out. Other than that, we went whole time, nonstop. And thank you to all the Australians who managed to keep things going at 4 a.m. So through that, I really learned about like the ways that kind of just sitting down and listening for a really long time about like these very specific parts of someone's life, and like you said, kind of just shutting up every once in a while, it really does help. And even though and like the broader point, I guess, is if you have a platform that you can use for good, no one can force you to do that, and especially not if it could potentially quote unquote, damage your reputation, which on the internet, everything you do that fights for civil rights is going to do some kind of, have some kind of impact on your ability to succeed financially. But sitting down and like saying, I'm going to give you this platform that is something that I built, and I'm going to allow you to take the time to say what you want to say, because I believe that whatever you have to say is inherently important. Like, that's a powerful thing, not just for the person speaking and for the audience that gets to hear it, but also like kind of vibe checking yourself like that can really help help you get a better grasp on like who has what to say and what you really care about in the world. And I am proud to say that during my stream, which was our stream, which was really, really long and pretty painful for a lot of it, we raised, I think, $20,533, I think.
Whoa.
And I'm not trying to one up you.
Damn.
Because
Oh yeah,
that's
sure.
Just ridiculously
one up
long.
me, yeah.
That's a 10x up. That's not a 1 up.
I just doing that stream, I know it was worth it for the amount that we raised, but it was, oh my gosh. Like, quick thing, half of the time that stream was going, I was in medication withdrawal and also had something that was akin to a very bad cold. So I was bedridden for about 50% of the planning phase, which we only gave ourselves a month to plan it, which is, don't do that. Don't be smarter than me, please, if you ever do something like that. Because I know plenty of people in this audience are crazy enough to spend a week straight streaming and trying to come up with something to talk about the whole time. But yeah, I guess listening and giving other people your microphone are very powerful things. And okay, I guess fourth and final question.
Sure.
What is something you think yourself and other allies could do better to help the trans community feel seen and respected?
So while when I say we, it's the royal we. We've made significant strides. There's always more room for improvement. Again, it's all about iteration in how we support and respect the whole trans community. And to go back to what both of you have said, one key area is active listening, right? Or I like your term better, Johnny. Just shutting the hell up. That
I
is,
stole it from Bo Burnham, so I
no,
don't lay credit to.
it's really key though. It's all about sharing experiences, right? That's literally what we're doing right now, and we're being given a chance to share our experiences so other people can kind of come to an understanding with where we've arrived in life, right? And what you do is you just shut the hell up and you just repeat that over and over. I keep thinking of the whole God gave you 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. So it's always that mindset. And as allies, you need to prioritize just listening to trans voices, trans experiences without interjecting, without putting in your own assumptions or experiences. Your job is to listen and understand and grok someone's experience that, speaking personally, I have zero context, right? I have my context of what I've learned so far, but if I was starting at zero, I don't know anything, right? Or even worse, if I'm starting from a hateful position, which is really hard, then you have to open yourself up, understand that you are wrong, and then you have to learn from there. So if you encourage that active listening, then you kind of just naturally fall into an ally space, right? You understand the experiences of others, you get to know them, you understand them, and you listen to your friends, and it's oh, okay, I respect this person. This is what they've had to go through, and those spaces where you're able to do that and sharing those stories and their needs, and making sure that those voices can be heard and valued is really important. Advocacy is also another really big important thing, something that both of you have done an excellent job at. We have a huge amount of privilege in the spaces that we've been put into. Shout out again to the uncaring universe. We need to use that privilege. Allies can use that to advocate, to improve visibility in real life as well as VR chat across all spaces. This doesn't mean well, it could mean quite militant actions, but it could also mean just challenging anyone who's being discriminatory, or supporting policies that are inclusive, or even just raising awareness, or just talking about or sharing the experiences that other people have told you. It's not about advocacy. Isn't about speaking up. It's about taking the experiences that you've learned from active listening and using that to create concrete actions to make a difference. It's not always about yapping, despite what me yapping on sounds like. And then, continuous education as well. That's just kind of the ongoing kind of thing, where you just always are continuing along the journey, understanding and the kind of evolving landscape of trans rights experiences. Again, we have a privileged position, both as where we were put and where we've gotten to as leaders, and you got to use that. You got it. So use it right. Of course, empathy, compassion in all interactions. You have to, empathetic listening and communication is a skill that I have been actively working on and getting better at. And there are a lot of really good books out there about this, but it is a skill that is just ridiculous in being able to have really effective active listening. just understanding where people come from an empathetic point of view, again naturally builds the ability to build a respectful and supportive environment for trans people. So that means like, you know, recognizing unique challenges that you don't understand and offering genuine support, genuine understanding. And you can't do that without shutting the hell up. So like that's important. And then finally, of course, like what we've talked about before, like fostering that culture of inclusion, like you be the change that you want to be. It is a challenge to be like in a space where like standing up for your friends, your family, can impact you in certain spaces. But like that's not going to change until more and more people keep doing that and just like literally bulldoze that kind of, you know, established sort of thing. Like you have to be that change, and that's the only way that that change eventually just becomes natural and part of how people live. And as leaders, like we have to encourage others, other leaders, other people in these spaces to do that. And yeah, that's kind of the best ways I can think of for allies to provide a more inclusive, supportive environment, and you know, pass on the power, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to build off of that, what we can do better certainly as allies in this space. I think going back to one of the points I made earlier of yes, we're in VR chat, but how does that translate out to real world outreach? And I think it's more important than ever for us to do that and to just take similarly the experiences of people and just listening to those experiences. And I really like the point you made about how when you just sit and listen, you naturally become an ally. Because just when it comes down to it, what breeds a lot of prejudice is just lack of information and misrepresentation. And I think more than ever, especially in Western society, unfortunately, with the rise of fascism and how trans people are being scapegoated in a lot of different communities, very, very unjustly so, of course. It's just, you know, it makes it all that more important as an ally to listen to experiences. And then when presented with these opportunities to educate, to basically um, communicate those experiences to people that wouldn't directly consume them from the people that they're prejudiced against. And sometimes that's all it takes to kind of start pushing that boulder down the hill and get the ball rolling for some people to discover that maybe their positions are wrong or that they've been lied to. Or and I think we definitely can always strive to do that better as a community, as allies, is just to educate and provide be a representative that someone would listen to transfer that knowledge that we've been listening to and that we've been absorbing as allies. So hope to keep doing that. Myself personally, I'm gonna try until my last dying breath, but yeah, it's getting pretty rough out there. And certainly just doing anything we can to push that needle just a little bit in the right direction and to educate and to spread experiences and just get rid of those negative and incorrect preconceived notions that people have been fed through social media or wherever. You know, that is absolutely our job as allies, that we can strive to do better and better every day.
Yeah. Cool. And my answer, I was told that this panel is PG-13, and if any of you don't know, usually PG-13 movies are allowed to use the F word once. So I'm going to go ahead and cash in on that. Just
right,
fucking Google it is my answer. So what I mean by that is if you see something in someone's bio or anywhere in the world and you don't feel like you understand that, something that I learned by just hearing trans people express how exhausting it was is that it is really tiring to have to explain your existence repeatedly, whether that is to defend it or just to inform about it. There is a level of like effort that's required to do that. If you can start learning by finding real accredited resources to help you understand, for instance, just definitions of words or the fundamentals of how gender theory and gender as a concept in our society is used, that's a great start, because then the one person in your small town that you know, uh, who is your only place where you learn about trans ideas, maybe you can take a little bit of a load off of them first by going into that conversation, asking questions with a little bit of information of your own that you can say, is it true that this, or I heard this, and you have a starting point where they don't have to explain the most fundamental things. And I think that's true for anyone who uh, wants to be informed in conversation, is just like, start off with some notes. When you get to the point where you are talking with someone who has had a personal experience, it's always a great idea to know that you're going into it without these inherent biases, that, or at least with less of them than you had before. So even if someone is transphobic and all they want is to, like, if they are willing to listen, it's just really helpful to not have to start from zero for whoever has to explain that. And I just want to amplify that feeling that I have heard from trans people in my life. And I guess, like, the other thing is kind of, once you've learned those things, don't, if someone gives you their perspective, pushing back is not the right option. If someone expresses, this is something I have felt, this is something I have seen, this is something that someone has said to me that hurt me, your answer should never be, okay, but isn't it true that, like, a debate is not what that person is asking for, ever. That's not the point. When you ask someone for perspective, you are asking for their perspective. You are not engaging them in a debate. And often the bait and switch of starting by asking a question and then making it into a gotcha is something that transphobes use a lot. And even just seeing it myself from a third person perspective, like, that's just so annoying. Like, I've had transphobes that I knew, usually through family, that I, inevitably have to interact with sometimes. Like, it's just so tiring to them ask a question that seems genuine, and then they're like, well, I heard that this, or this study says this, and it's just like some fucking Blaze article. Sorry, I said it again. My bad.
Oh, that's
but,
two.
That's
Oh, no.
two.
Our
We're
rating's
rated
gonna
R. I'm so
change.
sorry, Kizzy. I apologize.
FCC's coming after us.
Yo. So yeah, if from any position other than direct experience, if you're asking someone about their direct experience, try to be as informed as possible coming into it, and don't push back on that experience because they didn't ask.
Feelings are inarguable.
That is
You
my
cannot
response.
argue that someone did not feel a feeling. Like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's also important. I just want to build upon that, what you're talking about, especially as an ally when you're talking to somebody who may have some prejudicial viewpoints, or may not see it quite the same way as you. It's important to remember that nobody is most people, I'll say, I won't say everybody, but most people aren't trying to purposefully be a villain. A lot of people are just speaking from maybe wrong information, or they've been manipulated by people who know better, who are trying to do that.
Yeah.
And just trying to ask questions and understand somebody's point of view is far more important than just, like you say, trying to have a debate and trying to cram your ideas down their throat, because nobody is trying to actively be a villain. They're just maybe misinformed or have been manipulated. And it's important to remember that when having these discussions, especially as an ally, to ask questions more than just tell. And then through that, you can question their experiences and get them to question themselves, of maybe like, well, why do I believe this? Why is it maybe wrong? What other viewpoints are there? Versus just telling them how it is and debating them on how it is, because that'll get you nowhere.
Yeah. Primarily discriminatory ideas really you don't defeat discrimination by giving a really good citation to whoever's saying slurs. Like they don't. That's not what they need. They need exposure to real like real experiences, but also making sure that those real experiences don't always have to come from someone in face to face telling them this is like my real experience. So for instance, having a lot of resources that are verified and created by trans people online, like videos of people sharing their trans experiences, are a very powerful tool because you are able to impart upon people that may have these discriminatory ideas an understanding, at least from an interpersonal perspective, of what a human being has been through without someone having to sit down and say it to them for the 100th time while they push back against it. Like that's really powerful. So I think that's another thing that that kind of ties back into the last question of like how can we help like boosting these voices by even just saying, hey, this is a really good resource. Like I also saw this and I think that more people should see this, and boosting to someone with a platform I think is really powerful. Cool. Well, we have 4 minutes left. So I guess I didn't leave us much time for questions. Should we do like one audience question? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, one or two. We could try to
Yeah.
calm the yapping.
Whoever I have avatar hiding on because I'm on my backup computer, like my laptop, and it cannot handle even the robots. So, can it just I guess raise your hand or jump up and down if you have a question, and whichever one of you, Rose, sure, come on up, like
Alright,
come
so
up to the
question
edge
I
of the
have for
stage.
you, in your opinion, do you feel this is like a more philosophical, like a more of a sociological question, I guess. Do you feel that the reason that like people like transphobes go for like debate and gotcha is that humans themselves ourselves are not logical creatures and we're entirely tied to emotion, and basically getting into that like sort of like mindset helps them like sort of obfuscate the like emotional like personal response, which is more effective to like change their mind.
Gotcha. Let's see if I can restate
That
it.
is yeah, the question seems, if I'm getting this right, do humans like to in-group and then completely ignore reality to make that in-group feel more accurate?
I
Is
think it
kind of what I
was
got out of that.
the read I got, and I'll see if I can represent your question properly, is that there's a common thread when it comes to people who are harassing or trolling to rely on the whole like the vibe of feelings aren't real kind of thing, right? Where that's a primary fallback kind of attack method, right? And I think it really does tie back to kind of the emotional part of things, because if you live in the emotional space, if you live in like an empathetic like communication space, you can't win that argument. They know it's unwinnable. It is a pathway that won't work. And in a lot of these cases, their goals are quite simple. Number one, make someone else feel bad because they enjoy making like the Schadenfreude, yeah, I think that's how you pronounce that, of someone else feeling bad. So if you do that, I mean, if you truly like MMO min max that, you don't go for the impossible like boss, right? You don't go for the arguing about someone's feelings, because that's bullshit. Like you can't do that. It is you kind of fall flat. So instead, what you do is you go and reach out to the next thing, which is like, okay, well, I'm gonna go find a bunch of papers published to some no name whatever with no peer review that cites a bunch of statistics out of context. So really, it's a methodology I think that is used by trolls and hateful folks because they don't have another weapon. It's kind of the only arrow they have in the quiver, right? And while scientific research is like important in a lot of different cases, the concept of like feelings and emotions is not a like well researched or understood area. I mean, we've got some decent understanding of it, but like as humanity stands with its current like understanding of this thing, feelings are just inarguable experiences that an individual has had, and if you try and argue against that, like you're gonna lose every single time. Which is also why
Yeah.
we mentioned earlier, like that is your main advantage and your main weapon. If you can get someone onto that pathway, all you got to do is put them on that path, then the rest kind of follows.
Yeah. I don't feel any need to respond to that. You kind of nailed it.
Yep.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully that was the right
Before
answer.
we end off, before we end off, I was hoping that I was told I could go like 5 more minutes if I wanted to. Oh my gosh, my hand.
Sure.
Because I have something important to say. I was wondering if I could have the stage for those 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So this is kind of a personal thing, and I want to start by talking about like what why I mentioned at the start of this kind of that asterisk on identity. I want to say that the reason that this even the reason that I feel content in talking about this is because of the personal support that I got specifically from Tizzy, Shay, Scout, and Meowski. The four of them were absolutely amazing. I had a bit of like a gender crisis, probably like 4 months ago, maybe 5. And I was like, hey, this is like, these are the feelings I have. I think something is like going a different direction than I thought. This is weird. I don't like, guy doesn't always feel right. And uh, I guess the ending to that, to spoil it, was that I decided that being a cis male is, at least at this current point in my life, something that I am okay with and happy to identify as. But the thing is that having that experience, even just a taste of the feeling of like difference, feeling like not only difference from others, but feeling difference from what I was feeling like just a few months ago, like that deviation from my own path felt wild. Like I was shocked, and then also after that came the fear of like, oh my god, if I am trans, I am now like in a country where I am actively in danger. And then I realized, oh my gosh, so many of my friends are feeling that exact thing much more vividly. And that was another moment that I really understood trans identity. Holy shit. But I just wanted to end this off with a personal thank you to Scout, Tizzy, Shay, and Meowski for like really nailing it on making sure that while I was in that and on that path, I felt supported in both in either direction, whether I went through with transitioning or decided that it wasn't for me, which is what happened, or that I find something in between. And the other person I want to thank personally, even more prominently in that space, because she was here for me for like months, while the very seed of that started was my co-host on that Transcend charity stream, Ria, who is a therapist specifically doing gender-informed therapy for youth. And oh my gosh, she was like, she nailed it. People like that can tell you no matter what path you take, I am here for you. Sorry, I said path. I went directly against your thesis. Whatever direction you go in life, someone who can say, I'm not going to pick this for you, but wherever you go, I'm here for you, is like, oh my gosh, that's vital. And I want to say thank you to all 5 of those people for being part of that. And yeah, I guess if anyone else has something that they want to say before we end off, go for it.
Thanks for having us. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for having us, giving us a literal platform to speak. Thank you to everybody at the Trans Academy. I love all of you. You are all incredible. You do the best work of this class I've seen anywhere. And I think that's about it. Stay hydrated.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
quick thing unrelated to the panel itself. I know a couple of people in here wanted photos with me that I had to say I can't because I'm about to do a panel. I'm going to go probably right over there by that tree in the courtyard. If you want a photo or just to say hi, go for it. I'm going to stay there for like half an hour. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
All
hang
right.
out a
I
bit.
think we are